You're the one that wrote you.
All right. Are you going to start with the video? Okay.
I know, I am too, and I get worse and worse. I keep calling Patricia Priscilla. Well, I wanted to introduce our speaker today, Sally Durante, and she's from Crossroads. And if you haven't heard the sermon yet, you will be hearing about neighbors. And she's our neighbor right across the street. And it's Crossroads for Women. Hey, Roy and Thelma, they're on Zoom.
How you doing?
Okay. So Holly Durante is Director, Development and Communications Director at Crossroads for Women. And she's going to give you a spiel on what all they're about and how we can help.
Let me take over. Yeah, but you know about this system.
But I can.
So if you all are not unaware of what it is that we do, for 25 years, Crossroads for Women has been providing comprehensive and integrated services to the women of New Mexico who are exiting incarceration. There's a whole big spiel that I could go through, but I actually have this wonderful video that we put together last year for our 25th anniversary gala. It's a little bit on the long side, but I think it'll keep you engaged. It goes through our whole history of Crossroads, where we started, the services that we provide, and where we are today. And of course, I can go into detail after the video. And it's kind of like I'm presenting it to you because I know it. Yeah. We'll go ahead and just go and show the video. And if we have questions, and we can talk.
Okay, hold on. Well, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, which is okay. We'll do this. It'll work.
You started with it.
I did? Oh, I sure did. Don't worry, it's the only one that are. Well, and you might have choir members.
There's a person.
Really?
It's not usually when you do a share, and I don't know why. Yeah, there is just
And that's the problem again. Wait for this.
hold on.
Especially for the summer.
Oh,
You should get.
All right, this will give me just a chance to. I gotta fix. We got a little bit of an issue, but I'll get it fixed. There we go. Try one more time. Okay, it's for whatever reason, it's not. I think this will still work.
Crossroads for Women has been in service to Albuquerque for 25 years. Throughout that time, one word has encapsulated the spirit of the women in this community: believe. We believe women have the ability to heal and move on with their lives. We believe everyone deserves second chances. We believe women can recover from trauma and painful experiences. The needs of these women are at the heart of what we do, and every step toward the future is with them in mind.
Very good, man. That's it.
Crossroads has served the Albuquerque community and the broader community for 25 years now, and it's such a milestone. Among other things, it means I must be really old, but it's amazing when I think of how it started. I'm Lisa Simpson, and together with my former law partner and good friend Susan Tomita, I'm the founder of Crossroads for Women. I'm a lawyer, and I was doing civil rights plaintiffs' work representing a number of inmates in jails and prisons, as well as other types of civil rights work. And one of the cases I was involved in was the class action against the, at that time, Bernalillo County Detention Center for jail conditions. And together with Peter Kubra and Nancy Kenningsberg, we represented the subclass of inmates with mental health issues. So we were working on that case, and it became apparent that we could improve conditions within the jail, but then when people were released from jail, they very seldom were able to connect with services in the community, if those services even existed. And then they would decompensate and frequently end up back in jail.
In the beginning, this organization, Crossroads, was founded because there weren't services that were very needed to support the women in the community. There might have been like an organization over here that addressed mental health, and an organization over here that dealt with substance addiction or substance abuse issues, or maybe an organization over here that provided housing. But there was not an organization that really addressed the needs of the women in a cohesive, wraparound way. I think it was the executive directors, the founder, and then the subsequent executive directors, Casey, Quirk, Corey, Lee, that really, they were masters at networking within the community, building relationships with other organizations that provided similar services that we could refer to, or they could refer to us, building those relationships with other nonprofits, but also other civic organizations, government entities. This was all really important in order to establish Crossroads in the way that it is now. As
we found how difficult it was to connect them with services. I believe at that time UNM was actually the health services provider within the jail, and we envisioned a smooth transition from the jail-based services to community-based services with UNM. That took 3 of us with master's degrees, and still we're barely able to connect people to services. The system was so difficult. We knew we wanted to have a nurturing approach, a relapse-tolerant approach. Now I would say a trauma-informed approach, although I'm not sure I knew those terms at the time.
Trauma-informed care, as it relates to the work done at Crossroads for Women, refers to staff having the understanding that women have experienced trauma at some point of their lives. And the goal is to not re-traumatize women when they walk through our doors, and provide services with compassion, understanding, and empathy.
The model we wanted was intensive case management, and we didn't have a lot of models in the community to sort of copy. I think the level of intensive case management that we envisioned, and I think Crossroads still envisions, is a lot more than is typically provided through case management. And it is intense, and it's intense for the staff as well. We at that time wanted to offer wraparound services. We knew very well that that was needed. We did, to the extent we could, connect people with other community-based services. To the extent we could, started adding services. Housing was something we need to deal with on a almost a crisis basis if we were going to serve many women. And so we approached the continuum of care, which was overseen by the Albuquerque Homeless Advocacy Coalition at that time. And initially we were told, well, all the HUD funds go to people who go to agencies that currently have it. So there wasn't likely to be much available there. But then we found out that HUD had a bonus program. If the continuum scored a certain amount, they would qualify for a bonus, which could then fund a new program. So we applied for that, and we got it, which was scary because at that time we only had a half-time case manager, and we now had 20 additional units that we could house people in and support them. And providing services is, of course, its core mission, but it has from the beginning done a lot of advocacy work and continues to do advocacy work. In the early days, we worked on getting TANF available to women with drug-related felony convictions. We worked on housing. We worked on women being released in the middle of the night without any services, released from jail in the middle of the night. And those advocacy efforts have grown under my successors, Casey and Corey. And they have really incorporated and empowered the women to advocate on their own behalf, which is so important. It's so important for the women, and it's so important for the community. And that is another service to the community that has taken place and grown in these 25 years. And just the educational effort, and by the very existence of Crossroads, but also sort of explicit educational efforts to inform the community about this population and their needs and their potential. And I think also of the children that have grown up in this 25-year time frame. Most of the women had very unstable childhoods, traumatic childhoods themselves, and their ability through Crossroads to offer their children a stable environment to grow up in is huge. And some of those children are now probably middle-aged. And in fact, I know I stay in touch with some of the women, and their children are grown and providing themselves a good life, and in some instances, their children a good life.
My role at Crossroads was as the executive director. I was hired in 2010, stayed until 2017. I followed our beloved founder, Elizabeth Simpson, after her decades of leadership at Crossroads. There's been some debate about how many staff people were actually here when I got here, and I don't remember exactly. I think 16 might have been the number. We had Maya's Place and Crossroads. Those were the two primary programs. They'd been in place for a number of years. During the time that I was there, we took feedback from the women who told us that there needed to be more of us, meaning that there needed to be more of Crossroads to serve the many, many women who weren't getting served. And so one of the initiatives we engaged in was to grow ourselves out. And so a couple things happened all at one time, but we established a new program called Hope House, which was somewhere in between Maya's Place and the Crossroads in terms of its structure. We also went into a contract for the first time, really established a significant contract with Mexico Department of Corrections to open up the pavilions, which is in Los Lunas. And that was a significant undertaking, given that the community was not, at that time, greeting us with open arms. They saw themselves as being kind of a dumping ground for people in the criminal legal system, and we understood that. But I think at that point we had grown so much so quickly that everyone was just kind of a little shell-shocked and needed to just let it stabilize. So, you know, it was really, you know, keep the organization going. You know, that needed to be the goal. Just keep it going well, and don't lose the core philosophy of this work, which is easy to lose in a society that comes from a different place. You know, whether it was going to the legislature or presenting at a county commission meeting, city council, doing press conferences, it felt so powerful to have the women tell their stories in a way that they wanted to tell their stories, you know, kind of their truth to whoever was listening. The legislature was so ripe for what we were wanting to bring to them, which was, you know, changes in the way the prison system addressed vocational readiness for women. They had they were doing painting and crocheting or something ridiculous, and we put a lot of pressure on Department of Corrections to, you know, actually have the women do things that would be transferable when they got out. We put pressure on the criminal justice system to change the rules around having to identify yourself if you have a felony on your record when you apply for employment. We, you know, beefed up our day program so that we had more group offerings for people. We brought in more outside providers to enhance programming inside. And so really all I was a door opener, and literally took a group of women up for a lobby day, and they were nervous, and so I was like, okay, let me show you how it's done, and, you know, I'm going to be the cool executive director and show you the ropes about how to talk to legislators. And so we go in, we talk to Senator Cisco McSorley, and we do our spiel, and they hand them cards, and we have this system, and we step out into the hall, and I say to the women, so that's how it's done. Are you okay with that? And within a second or two, the lieutenant governor walks by, and I just happen to say, oh, there's the lieutenant governor. And all the women just left me and went and educated the lieutenant governor. And I didn't see him again, except for getting some cell phone calls. And they went and did their whole legislative round. I mean, we saw, you know, legislators and others, you know, in tears and coming up to talk to women and wanting to make that connection, which I think is what makes positive change happen, is when we find each other relatable in some way. All of a sudden, this unknown aspect of our community was getting known. We were learning about the lives of women who were involved in the criminal justice system, who had been involved with CYFD, or who'd been homeless, who have mental health issues. All of that stuff was coming, you know, forward, and people were embracing it.
Though the groundwork had been laid for years, starting in 2021, Crossroads for Women began another period of expansion. 4 projects make up this expansion. Crossroads Village became the new home of the organization with the purchase of a 30,000 square foot building in downtown Albuquerque. The Butterfly Boutique is the new donation hub of the organization, where community gifts are accessed by clients in a new, beautiful environment. Casa de Mariposa is a 15-unit apartment complex that will house women on their journey to independent living. And Crossroads' most ambitious project to date is the complete renovation of the south side of Crossroads Village, which will be the permanent home of the therapeutic community, Maya's Place.
Crossroads for Women, I think, has really established itself as a pillar of this community, of the Albuquerque community, and in particular with the criminal justice system. It was clear at the time that we just did not have the space for the things that we wanted to do. Like actual physical space, and then just the space to meet the functional and the programmatic needs of all the clients. And so the board knew we've got to find other space, and the organization knew, and the women knew. Everybody knew it was time.
I knew that a new location was coming, and in fact, we were in the Tejeras building for a lot longer than we could, like, realistically maintain. So we talked about a new location for a long time before it actually manifested.
You know, my whole history with Crossroads goes back to the Tejeras building. And so there was some nostalgia there, you know, because I used to go there to access services myself. We were all kind of piled on top of, we were very together there. We were like, you know, crammed into offices. I used to make jokes that my office downstairs was in the broom cupboard, so I kind of felt like Harry Potter. But it was, there was a sense of togetherness. But during the summer, because our air conditioning was not the best, tensions were high, to say the least.
The building roof essentially almost caved in after a rainstorm once, and we lived with plaster falling for a while. You know, it's just kind of what you do in the nonprofit world, is you deal with what you have and try to make the best of it.
My favorite memory was when the previous ED went out of the country, and it was my first time being ED, being in charge. And of course, that was the week there was a giant flood, and even the light fixtures filled with water. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, I guess, but it's raining in the building, and dealing with that in the heat of summer. You could lose 10 pounds. I mean, they could have sold tickets like it was a spa.
You know, when we found this building, when this building came up as a potential option, the entire board was involved in that, and we were able to walk through sort of what the pros and cons were of this building. And it had so many pros: the location to the downtown area, we were close to public transportation for everybody, the price tag was right, the space was right. I mean, we just couldn't, I don't think, have been more excited about it. But the financing process, the actual functional buying of the building and everything that goes into that was just so stressful, you know, and it was really difficult for everybody involved. And now here we are, and it's like you look around and you see what this organization has built for the community, and it's amazing. I mean, it really is. It's just tremendous, and it's an honor, frankly, to be a part of it, to be able to sit here and talk about it. It doesn't really look anything like it looked then. It was completely run down. There were bugs everywhere. I mean, it needed a complete refresh, and also it felt like a hospital. I mean, it felt like a hospital, and we, didn't want this place to feel like a hospital for people. When we toured the building initially, before the renovations had started, I mean, there were areas we were not allowed to walk. Like, no, dangerous. Like, the roof might fall, the floor might fall out. Like, don't touch anything, don't do anything. And to come back, 6 months, 8 months, a year later, it's like night and day. I mean, it's so proud to be able to have women in the building using it for what it actually is meant to do. I mean, we have a room that is set up as like a teaching and learning center with computers and screens and all of these things. And it's phenomenal to see it, and it's only going to get better.
When we got here, watching all of the staff, case managers, peer supports, clinicians, everybody just unloading trucks, right? And we had movers. That was the thing, we had movers, but everybody wanted to be a part of it. And so seeing that, and then I think the first time we had a get together, we had a potluck, right? And just the laughter that reverberated off the walls, that was really, really cool.
The expansion at Crossroads has really opened up, I think, a whole new way of looking at these women's lives Frankly, I think it has enabled the organization, obviously, just to functionally grow. We have significantly more employees and staff than we ever did before, but has allowed us to more holistically meet the needs of the people that we're seeing here.
And the Butterfly Boutique is going to be awesome for girls to go in there, and it's not as cluttered as the Happy Room was, so they get to have a better selection of items. And for clients to have access to like the Happy Room, home goods, and hygiene, it's very helpful because for one, it helps the ladies when they go in there to pick out clothing and stuff like that. It helps boost their confidence and helps them believe in themselves a little bit more, because we can't always afford living on limited budgets. Most of us can't always afford those things, and so to have those offered to us is a great blessing. To get things from those rooms, it's awesome.
So housing here in Albuquerque is now at a crisis level. There is almost zero affordable housing. And if you are seeking housing and you live below the poverty guidelines and you have a record, it's almost completely impossible for you to find any decent housing in somewhat of a good and or safe neighborhood. This new 15-unit apartment complex is going to allow Crossroads for Women to be able to house women without the barrier of affordable housing, because it's going to be affordable for them, without the barrier and almost the uncomfortableness of having to say what your background is, right? There's not going to be a background check. We already know what everyone's background is of our clients that we're going to be putting into these apartments. And it's one less judgment that they are not facing.
So the new Maya's Place, which is scheduled to open January 1, we're so excited. It's going to house 30 women. It's going to have a computer lab. It's going to have group rooms, 4 kitchens. It has 3 outdoor atrium areas where the women can garden. But more importantly, it's going to be housed with the main Crossroads. Where we are in the process, we've done a lot of work. I mean, we started with a building that had been empty for a couple of years. That side of the building hadn't been there hadn't been anybody housed in the south side for a while. It was falling down. The roof is in need of a total replacement. The walls needed to be completely removed because water got into the walls. So we were very clear with our general contractors, who have been amazing, but we were like really clear, like, take it down to the studs, right? We want something new, we want something beautiful. And while we know that those things, going down to the studs can be a little bit expensive, we do know that in the end we're going to have a really solid foundation, right? And that's what we tell the women, that if you can build a solid foundation, you can weather anything else. And it's the same for the south side of this building. It has seen some hard times, but it's coming back to life. One nail at a time, one brick at a time. They're putting the roof on this week. I'm really excited. And then they'll start putting the walls back in. And as we see it come to life, we're going to, I think, feel revitalized and motivated in terms of the work that we're doing. Right. Our motivation really comes from meeting women where they are at, which is at the foundation of what we do. We're gender specific, we're trauma informed, we're strength based. And that goes for the women that we serve, that goes for the staff that we work with every day. We try to remember all of those things.
For 25 years, Crossroads for Women has had the privilege to serve the women of Albuquerque. The organization is propped up by a community that believes in the work, believes in second chances, and believes that women deserve to be uplifted and empowered so that they can provide a better life for themselves and their families. As supporters of Crossroads for Women, thank you for all you do, and we hope you will join us as we embark on another 25 years of service.
I think the biggest need that I see for Crossroads is really just that continued commitment from the community and from our community partners, and showing us that they value these services as well, which we all know that they do.
I'd like to tell the people that believe in our organization, thank you for all your generosity and your donations and your help, because I know that without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And so I would just like to say thank you, and you guys have a really big heart, and we appreciate it.
I want to say to all the people who have supported Crossroads for the past 25 years, your time, I honor the time and the commitment and any other way in which you committed to this organization and supported this organization for the last 25 years. I want to say thank you.
So actually, Robert was my avid user. He actually all of that. But so yeah, so I think that that kind of lays down the groundwork for what Crossroads is, what we're all about. You know, obviously there have been some unfortunate setbacks since that video, since we completed that back in August of last year. The south side renovations, we really were hoping to get women onto the south side of that building across the street, but we have seen just, again, unfortunate setback after inflation. A project that we had hoped was going to cost us $2 million has now skyrocketed to $5 million. So, you know, the goal is to have by 2024, that will be the future home of Maya's Place. And so Maya's Place, how they were talking about in the video, was one of Crossroads therapeutic communities. It's the first therapeutic community that we opened. And it's a transitional housing facility for women that are coming out of incarceration. It houses about 20 to 30 people. And they're pre-qualified, you know, things that the women need to go through. They need to be interviewed by us. They need to have, it's typically nonviolent offenders. They need to have a co-occurring mental health or substance diagnoses. But Maya's Place really sets the groundwork for what we do. And then we opened up the pavilions, which serves Valencia County and Los Angeles. So that's where we're at with that building. And again, with the Casa de Mariposa, the footage that is on there, you can see more updated pictures of that, because we actually did partner with Habitat for Humanity, and they did come out, and for 2 weeks they painted, they tore out bushes, we had the help of the community. Local muralist Nani Chacon did this beautiful mural of butterflies on the side of the building. So that 15-unit building is located on Wyoming and close to Central off of Wisconsin. And if you drive by, you can't miss it. You'll see just bright blue. So it definitely looks very different from what you saw. And again, we were about to move people in back in October, and we had a fire. So again, another setback. However, I will say that we have been able to renovate once again, and we will be moving women fairly soon. So if there are any questions, or if I can go into any more depth of what Crossroads does or what I do not provide direct services to women. However, I will say that when I got hired, the whole purpose of me coming to Crossroads, or why I wanted to be at Crossroads, was one, my mom was a volunteer when I was in high school, so she always spoke very highly of Crossroads. And two, I came in as a communication specialist. I wanted to hear the stories from women. And in the year that I have been there, that's what I've done. And it's been such a treat to sit down and listen to their stories. And it's a place where women can come, where they've been judged their whole lives or judged because of their circumstances, and they walk into Crossroads, it's like a sense of relief. It's a place where they will feel welcome. It's trauma informed. It's a safe space for women. Because us believing in them and believing in second chances was a huge reason why I wanted to work for Crossroads. And I'm honored and privileged to be there for now a little over a year. So, are there any questions?
You said, one question is if you could give us a different story. And also, what do you mean when you say trauma informed?
So they kind of discussed it a little bit earlier in the video, but trauma informed is essentially understanding that we all come from different backgrounds. And so it's kind of like being informed to the women's needs in terms of, again, no judgment passed on them, understanding just where they've come from. So like a typical story would be like, there have been awful stories that I've heard of women being released from jail in the middle of the night with nowhere to go and no services provided to them. They've been constantly beat down by the justice system. And so they feel like they don't have anybody that they can turn to or people that they can trust. And so when they come into Crossroads, it's our responsibility to be understanding of that trauma of you've had nobody to turn to. How could you trust anybody? But they walk into Crossroads and we're here and we're patient and we're with open arms to listen to your story. And I think that's really what's most important is that people just want to be heard and they want to feel like they're an actual human being that means something to somebody. And so that hopefully answers your question a little bit more.
I just wanted to share some different government mentions in my private system, like 40 years ago. And we had a woman who came out for the poll and we not find a place to speak. So I'm really glad to convince you all things. But when you look at the story, we had a woman who had grown up in foster care. She never had parents in her life. Had ended up in the juvenile delinquent system. And then ended up being extended, was became addicted to drugs, had never slept in a room by herself. So when she was eligible for parole. She had gone to beautician school, she had a trade, she had a job, and it was at the honor unit. So we took her to work every day and picked her up because she didn't have finally got her to parole, like you have been paroled, you need to leave. And she could not stay in the room without hearing other people breathing. She had never in her entire life slept alone. So we finally ended up working with her where she came back like 3 nights a week and slept at the facility so she could have her friends and she could be around people. And then she would be like, hey, you need to stay in your room tonight. You know, she knew how to cook, she knew she had those skills, but she didn't know how to be alone. And she finally, after at one night, she spent the night with Terry now. Because it was like she just couldn't sleep by herself. But we had no services to offer her other than she had a job, she had skills, but she had no support that we could connect her to.
And that's something that we do offer at Crossroads. You know, we do have 2 transitional housing facilities for women in Sonoma. They live there. It's up to 6 months to a year. Once they kind of graduate our program, then they kind of move into a new program called POPS, which is peer-on-peer support. So they can continue to come to the downtown Crossroads and continue to get services. If they want to step in on a group that we're doing, they're more than welcome to do that. So it's not like once they graduate our program, that's it, goodbye. You know, we're continuing to stand by their side and be a pillar, be some sort of support for the women. And we actually did just start this new program called Peer Drop-In Program. We started it back in December. And this is going to allow not just women, but it's gonna allow men to kind of enter in our program, but they don't necessarily need to have some criminal background. It's people that are coming off of the street who are precariously housed or can't afford to buy groceries that week. They have access to our food bank. If you're a new mother, they have access to like our diaper bank. You'll have access to, if, you know, again, if they want to set it on a group and kind of feel supported by the community, they're more than welcome to do that too. We have vocational services. So if they want a touch up on their resume to try to get out of the world and get a job, we offer that as well. So I'm really excited about this new program. You know, obviously too, we will help with the housing to extend. We were a big part of the ERAP program that was during COVID. So that's emergency rental assistance program. And I think her name's Kim Lyons, and she was the woman who was doing the ERAP program for Crossroads last year. She saw the most women in all of Albuquerque. So yes, I mean, they were coming to her, and it was again, it was a safe space for people to. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I could go on and talk about the work that Crossroads does, but I do feel like, you know, if there's anything else that I can really like elaborate on or speak about.
I'm wondering about that building. How big is it? Sprinklers? Sprinklers? One of the big issues. Places.
Yeah, so it's actually funny.
Because I think family problems, they need the same thing. They took a lawyer's office, right? Turns out they need sprinklers. The engineer, you know, that's it. You know, you can't sleep people as a corporate entity. You can't sleep people in place without sprinklers. And most people get excited about it. There's a lot to it.
So the whole building that we purchased that's right across the street, it's 30,000. So there's one side of it that is, you know, all staff. We have a kitchen and we have a common room where we do events. And the empty side is literally all like mirrors it. But this side is going to have, you know, 3 kitchens, and we want to have a computer lab. And we want to have up to 30
people sleep in there.
Not, no, I mean,
That's the goal.
well, I mean, we were for the start here, but yes, there's no sprinkler system on that. Actually, that's another big project and something that we're running into is where our butterfly boutique is on their donation center. And it's also where the women come and shop for clothes. There's a whole separate room that we have dedicated that we already have donated washer and dryers. We want to provide the laundry facility for the women to come to. They can come do their laundry while they're in group and not have to worry about it. But that whole actual building, and my office used to be in there, but I had to move out of it because there's no heat. There's no sprinklers. It's another setback of getting quotes, and it's something that you wouldn't think would be that expensive. It's $28,000. Yeah. No, I mean, we're very fortunate though. We do rely heavily on grants and funding from the state and from the city, county. But yeah, we do rely heavily on specific grants. We were able to be part of a $2 million initiative and money from the governor's office. But again, it's like getting that money, even though you've been given it, it's not really given. So that's the exactly. So so yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the unfortunate thing. But you know, as Corey said in the video, like, or I think it's easy. It's kind of just what happens in the nonprofit world. It's like you kind of just roll with the punches and you just continue on. So that's why this project is a peer drop-in support program. That's just something for us to kind of look forward to and go ahead.
The structure is such that they would start here for 6 to 12 months And then move toward an apartment, is that the structure?
That is typically the structure when women are coming out of jail, they're interviewed, and then they are picked to live at my place or in Los Lunas. So they go through a program of 6 to 12 months, and then they are kind of transitioned into these kind of graduate programs that we do. But also at downtown, get a little confusing because at our downtown location, we are part of the Bernalillo County initiative called Community Connections. So that is where women have been in jails, have mental health or co-occurring or substance diagnoses. They haven't just been released from jail; they've been for quite some time, but they follow under the criteria to be part of Community Connections. But we now have like 77 women in that program, and so what that program is home visits. It's meeting with your case manager daily. It's coming to the groups that we offer. It's again, they have access to butterfly boutique, and they have access to. We do help, I believe, with a little bit of mental assistance. So it's just, I think along the way, Crossroads is just there as somebody to just help you and just to hold your hand. Yeah.
The individual, was that like the 2-story building with the stairs going down and we saw the doors? Is that building?
No, so actually that's it. That's Casa de Mariposa. That's the apartment 15 unit. So that is the intention is for once women graduate from either program or from Maya's place, that they will be able to move into apartments are like 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or studio apartments. That's where they can like live with their kids. Just have that sort of sense of community.
So a lot of your friends do have children.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, if you go across the street and go to the facility, they have a little baby room or your nursery, and then they have a toddler room.
I have it okay.
What about job placement? You support job placement, and how hard is that? I mean, it's hard.
It's definitely tough because, as much as we can help, it also comes down to a community member taking that step. And so we do have a whole vocational department, and women can come in and like I said, they can get help with their resume. Her name's Leisha. She will post jobs regularly, and most of the time too, if women are really committed, if they're just like, I have no ride, I can't get to this job interview, they can rely on us. We will help, or we'll help them with getting them. But yes, we do have a vocational department that does, and we also do have job resource fairs as well. We had a really successful one last year where we had Goodwill and even behavioral. I think we had about 15 different organizations on the table. And there was actually a community member who came in, she put her resume, and she's about to say, hey, so it's pretty cool. It's I love to see like community, some of us seeing people. What I've seen in the last year. It's a huge reason why I continue to stay at Crossroads, because I just see the joy that we are able to provide for women and children.
I'm sorry, is there any support for women who wanted to go to school, like to CNM or to UNM?
Yeah, actually, learning education and learning center, they actually rent space inside of our building. So they will help you with like GED prep. And, yeah, and they'll actually kind of help you move past that mistake if you feel like what are the next steps. That is something that we have.
What are the volunteer opportunities? Do you have, supposed to go through?
Yeah, actually, so I have a bunch of really great forms that are, but one of them is a volunteer opportunity form. So it has a bunch of information on there. But really what we're looking for is somebody who can come in for a couple hours, just a day, that's totally fine, just whatever. You just do have to for the best opportunity. And a lot of it right now though is like donations. Right? Part of your body and the donation space. My development team, I started off when we had a staff of 4 and now we're down to 2 people. So we really do rely. There's also, if you were ever interested in being a part of like our fundraising, that there's also opportunity for that. And that is more so what I am doing is I am in charge of fundraising. But yeah, Emily Cronin is our community engagement specialist. And so if you give her a call, she will get you set up right away. And really it's just you come in, you fill out a volunteer intake form and then you start filing.
And then when Maya's place, not only Maya's place will be so close to us.
Yeah.
Will there be children there? Or no, they? And then I'm just wondering opportunities for the church to partner with you, especially close to us, like if there were meetings that, you know, you can bring to some of our committees, just things that you need so we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually something that my community engagement specialist wanted to bring up really bad. We just asked them if they'll help us with this big project of hers. She would really like help in repainting the lines of the parking lot.
The lines in the front. So you can the Johnson building property, are we trying to get bids for that for ours so we can do it at the same time?
Yeah, we were looking at repairing the paving, restriping.
Restriping, and so why couldn't we tell the contractor for a little bit extra?
Buying the process.
That would be
possible.
Yeah.
You accept donations for household goods?
Yes.
Do you accept furniture?
So right now, unfortunately, we don't have the space for furniture, but that will change because once we start to furnish the apartments, we will be accepting furniture, but it's just a matter of space issues that we're running into. But we will, if you just have to call us, and let us know, we can come pick it up.
So, do you have the manpower and the transportation for furniture?
We do actually, yeah. We used to not, but we definitely do now. Like I said, so it's kind of fun to take volunteers out to go pick up some furniture and yeah.
And are you still working with the United Way?
Yeah, we have a very strong partnership with United Way. Yeah, they've been phenomenal.
Where are your women coming from and how much support do you get in the facilities that they're coming
from? They're coming from the detention centers downtown mostly. And
they run out and down friends?
There is, I don't believe that we yeah. And then there is a jail in Boston as well, so that's also where women come. Like I said, what I have heard from the coworkers of mine who actually have direct service, who provide direct services to women, it can be it's been a little bit challenging to work with jails and officers. And again, I think that's also where a lot of trauma comes because I don't necessarily believe that our justice system is the most positive. I'm not too sure if that is something that is still happening. It might be, and that is something that Lisa Simpson, our founder,
found that was happening. So she.
Remember,
Yeah.
I remember having a drinking ball in 2007. I didn't, 2 o'clock in the morning, just drop them down.
Yeah, by the old jail, they actually. It's where they took them.
And some of them don't have the open, they just, yeah.
And it could still be happening. I'm quite positive it.
And do you ask the people that are coming out how they will treat these?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole process of intake, and I'm that. But definitely, if you ever wanted to come by and want more information about that, there's people that I can't quite even touch with. I can only imagine that is absolutely the first question that they do. That's something that they evaluate. That's so what it's hard to hear. It's hard to hear with the treatment of.
How did they know about you?
Referrals. I mean, I do think that within the jails, they do a lot of people that work with in the jails. They do recommend going to Crossroads. We also do make visits to the jails too.
So they're mostly Albuquerque.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed there was an alumni director on there who I guess was part of the.
Yeah, and that's actually very common in the program, or actually with our staff. There's quite a bit of women who have gone through the programs and who have now worked for Crossroads. And actually that alumni, she is now our assistant executive.
From your experience, and I don't know if you've been at this moment, but percentage wise, what's the batting average? I mean, how successful?
Well, it's hard to say because, like I think I said earlier, is that we can do so much to provide the services of that health, but it takes the client, the community member to want to accept that. Some people don't. People don't want that, and sometimes it takes once, twice, 3 times for them to finally realize, okay, I think I do want this help. I would like to say though that for Crossroads and for the community, I think that we have a very successful. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, and I think everyone in here knows, pass the ball to you, Carol, that you're current division partner of First Presbyterian Church, and have been for how many years, Carol?
Oh, I just started. Yeah. In fact, it's interesting. Off in March, we saw Manal, who we've been since the 1800s. I think we have them last year. I think it's
Close to 2 years. Your ideas about the news. We are looking at doing collection of income because our congregation likes to do in-kind things, and we're fortunately in this church well supported by an endowment. So we do have money and we share with. I think we're going to be doing more in-kind things this winter. And that's what is coming out of this what we do with our mission. And we will be putting messages in our newsletter that we receive twice a week. And we collect things for real things. We work on the list, and we've been talking in our committee about how we're going to manage that, going the second commons. Staff as well. So
yeah, I mean, this is a partnership that I'm very appreciative of, and I want to see it just grow into Boston. And I think that if there is anything that you ever need from us, there you to us. And it's one thing. I know that again, we're a nonprofit. We rely heavily on monetary donations, grants, but the in-kind donations is really what makes the difference. I think these are things that you would think that are basic necessities. It's really hard to come by for some people. hygiene products and just like bedding. And so that's why we well, yeah, we have a hygiene closet that we have. And like I said, if anybody ever wants to come tour the facility, you're more than welcome. I have business cards at that table as well. I'm more than welcome to take a look and see kind of our food pantry. But yeah, there's kind of just donations and sheets up on that table that just what we're kind of asking. A lot of dry short foods and dry body wash as well, because we are seeing a lot more of the precariously housed people. And we're never going to turn. So I'll probably, and I printed out so many, but please, if you'd like to just hang on to it.
Yeah. Well, when Crossroads undertake the advocacy for people being released in the middle of the night, or is that too far removed from what you? I mean, maybe the authorities higher up in those organizations don't know that's happening. Yeah.
Because that's something I heard about so strongly. I think it's something that we should start to look at as and realize like this is close. We actually, with like 50 of our clients, our community members, went out to lobby day a couple weeks ago. So we're still very much a part of educating and what's going on, especially in our legislature right now. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's, in my opinion, that's negligence. Yeah, to turn someone loose in the middle of the night with nowhere to go.
That's cool. More than negligence.
Well, I'm not sure. 25 years if that is something that has.
Like the mayor's office or whatever hierarchy has to be approached to fix that problem.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention this many times. The Albuquerque just.
Whoever thought that was a good idea?
Yeah. I don't know why it's I agree with you. I think the ladder.
How can you ignore something like that though? I mean, the mayor's office, somebody, you're gonna have to rally some case somewhere.
There's been a lot that is happening with our jails. Been in the paper recently with inmates dying, their care, people that are just turning a blind eye, and it's very unfortunate. But yeah, that's the work that we're trying to understand, and of course, like we want to advocate for change. Because yes, it is. It's
You're not encouraging them to behave themselves, dropping them off 2 in the morning, no place to go.
But again, it's people that, unfortunately, I think that a lot of people, even in higher positions, don't give it. That's just really unfortunate.
Well, the DOJ should be careful about people that are, and this has bothered me, not just in the state, but I've lived in many states and every place, is that they want to incarcerate them and they don't want to teach them how to live a life. When they let them go, they can. All they're doing is harming us by incarcerating them, holding them for however long, and throwing them out in the street. You're encouraging them to commit more crime. Well, those of us that are not incarcerated and don't live a life like that, never have, are getting harmed by that, as well as the people that are being
Well, as a
Release us.
taxpayer, you can choose to spend the money on jails or educating them. Yeah, I mean, let's fill schools instead of jails. It's not the issue of the jails or the.
It's not just jails that you have to have more police, you have to have more judges, you have to have more of everything. I mean, we could do without all of that if we would, when we incarcerate somebody, we would teach them and respect them.
And that's what she was saying.
Right.
Once they're not judged, like when they walk through your door, they're not judged.
They are humans, they need to be respected just like you and I are respected, and then they will come out and respect us.
Yeah.
But if you don't respect somebody, they do not respect you.
Yeah.
It's my thought on the whole thing.
Well, thank you for giving me your time and allowing me to. So I really appreciate it. And again, if you're ever curious and want to come toward the downtown location, you can give me a call and we'll be more than happy to assist. Her website has a lot more information, and her social media has information with events and things. Yeah, I really, like I said, I appreciate this partnership. I think it's just, like I said, it's beautiful to have communities just coming together to help one another. Said if there's anything at Crossroads that we will be there.
But what's
Somebody would think, what, we're calling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think together. So that's just a big project of course, but yes.
Very.